The moment Jasmine Crockett stepped inside Lakewood Church, she knew something was wrong. Not because anyone told her, but because every eye that turned toward her carried the same unspoken question. Why is SHE here? The choir hadn't even finished their warm-up when a message flashed across a small in-ear monitor worn by 3 security guards stationed near the front row. Joel wants her monitored. Don't let her near the stage. Jasmine didn't know it yet, but someone else inside Lakewood had been waiting for her arrival. Someone who sent her an anonymous envelope 2 days earlier. Inside it was a single sheet of paper containing 4 handwritten words. Ask him about Deborah Hayes. No explanation. No signature. Just those 4 words. She had no idea who Deborah Hayes was. Not yet. But she would. And what Joel Osteen did the moment he saw Jasmine walk down the right aisle would spark a confrontation so intense, so unexpected, that the entire sanctuary would fall silent in seconds, and millions watching online would replay the moment again and again. Because Joel wasn't planning for Jasmine to speak. He wasn't planning for her to question anything. In fact, he had quietly instructed his team that if Jasmine Crockett approached the pulpit under any circumstances, remove her before she says anything she can't take back. So when Jasmine took just 2 steps toward the stage, not running, not shouting, just walking with calm intention, Joel's smile tightened. He lifted his hand ever so slightly. Security moved instantly. And as 3 guards closed in, Jasmine said one sentence. One sentence that stopped them mid-stride and froze the entire room. Pastor Joel, before you remove me, tell them the truth about Deborah Hayes. Joel's face changed. Not fear. Not anger. Something worse. Recognition. He knew exactly who Deborah Hayes was. The sanctuary erupted in whispers. Phones lifted. People leaned in, sensing something explosive, something Lakewood had never faced publicly before. And Jasmine wasn't done. She held up the anonymous envelope. I think your church deserves to know why her name was sent to me, and why someone inside your ministry begged me to expose the truth you've been hiding. Joel stepped back from the pulpit. Security hesitated. And for the first time in Lakewood's history, one woman's question threatened to unravel everything. But what was the truth about Deborah Hayes? And why did Joel try to stop Jasmine from saying anything at all? You're about to find out. If Jasmine walked away today, nothing would change. Families would continue believing that their financial struggles were signs of weak faith. Single mothers would keep giving their last dollars hoping for blessings that never arrived. Elderly members, like the mysterious Deborah Hayes, might continue suffering in silence, believing that God had abandoned them simply because they couldn't keep up with the church's expectations. But the stakes went deeper than money. This was about truth. Because someone inside Lakewood Church had reached out to Jasmine, secretly, quietly, risking their entire livelihood, to tell her something serious enough that they couldn't attach their name. And Joel Osteen? He seemed terrified that Jasmine might reveal it. If Jasmine spoke, the narrative of comfort and prosperity that Lakewood projected could crumble. If she stayed silent, the cycle would continue, and more names like Deborah Hayes might end up in forgotten folders inside the ministry office. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was a test of integrity, a test of courage, a test of whether truth could still stand in a room built on polished positivity. And Jasmine Crockett wasn't the type to back down. But who exactly was Deborah Hayes? And why did someone inside Lakewood believe her story could shake the entire church? Before we continue, tap the like button to support honest storytelling, and drop a fire in the comments if you're ready for the truth to unfold. 2 months earlier, Jasmine received an email with no name, no location, no social profiles connected. The message was 4 sentences, short, trembling, almost scared. Her name was Deborah Hayes. She trusted the wrong promise. She died believing she was the problem. Please look into it. Attached was a single picture. A woman in her late 60s, smiling with a warm gentleness, holding a small notebook in her hand. Jasmine began digging. Deborah Hayes was a retired nurse. Someone who spent her life serving others. She lived on a modest pension and occasionally worked part-time at a community clinic. But the shocking part came when Jasmine discovered bank statements obtained through public records linked to Deborah's estate. 6 months before her passing, Deborah had withdrawn nearly all her savings in small increments, and each one was labeled the same way. Seed offering. Jasmine interviewed neighbors. She spoke with clinic co-workers. She even reached out to Deborah's former pastor from before she began following Lakewood. And one comment echoed from every side. She kept saying God was waiting to bless her. that her breakthrough was on the way if she just proved she trusted enough. But that wasn't the full story. After more digging, Jasmine found a recorded voicemail in Deborah's phone archives, time-stamped 6 weeks before her passing. Deborah's voice was fragile, shaky. "I'm doing everything I can, Lord. I know I'm behind on rent again, but I won't stop giving. You know my heart. You know I trust you more than anything." It wasn't desperation. It was devotion. And that was the heartbreaking part. Deborah wasn't manipulated by hate. She wasn't pressured by fear. She was guided by hope, a hope tied to the belief that her giving would unlock the miracle she had been praying for. Jasmine realized something painful. Deborah didn't die angry. She died faithful. And faith like that deserved truth, not silence. But Jasmine had no idea that her investigation would lead her directly into the heart of Lakewood Church and onto its stage. When Jasmine accepted Lakewood's invitation to attend the weekend service, she intentionally said nothing about Deborah Hayes. Not a single post. Not a single hint. But Joel sensed something. He kept glancing backstage, checking with his assistant, adjusting his jacket, pacing between segments. Meanwhile, Jasmine noticed subtle things. Ushers communicating quietly through earpieces. A staff member following her 2 rows behind. And an unusual tension among the worship team. Someone inside Lakewood knew exactly why she was there, and they were scared. During the worship interlude, Jasmine quietly moved toward the side aisle. That's when she overheard a conversation between 2 volunteers. Pastor said if she tries anything, escort her out. She knows. Of course she knows. That's why he's nervous. The moment Jasmine stepped into the aisle, Joel glanced down from the stage and instantly signaled security. He didn't want a scene. He didn't want questions. He definitely didn't want Deborah Hayes mentioned publicly. But Jasmine had planned this moment perfectly. She waited until the sanctuary lights dimmed for prayer. The exact moment when thousands of eyes were closed, but cameras were still rolling. She walked toward the stage steps. Security moved. Joel leaned slightly forward, eyebrows tensed. This was no accident. Someone inside Lakewood had wanted this truth exposed, and they chose Jasmine strategically. Because she wasn't afraid of microphones. She wasn't afraid of institutions. She wasn't afraid of consequences. She was afraid of one thing only, silence. Just as the guards reached her, Jasmine raised the envelope and said loud enough for the front rows to hear. "I'm here because someone in your church asked me the question you've avoided for months." Joel froze mid-breath. A few heads turned. Then more. Then more. The sanctuary began to shift. A tremor of curiosity, confusion, and fear spread across the room. Jasmine's next words would determine everything. And when she opened the envelope, what fell out made Joel Osteen's entire demeanor change. If you're still with me, hit the like button and comment, keep going. Because the truth is about to hit hard. A small folded note slid from the envelope and fluttered onto the stage steps like a fallen feather. Every eye followed its gentle descent. Even the choir stopped breathing. Jasmine bent down slowly, the sanctuary so silent that the rustle of paper echoed through the speakers. She picked up the note, unfolded it with careful hands, and lifted her eyes toward the thousands watching her. "This," she said, her voice steady, "is from Deborah Hayes." Whispers shot across the room like an electric current. Joel stepped forward in a rush, plastering a smile across his face, so tight it looked painful. "Ma'am, please," he said, his voice strained. "Let's handle this privately." But Jasmine didn't even glance at him. She began reading. "If this is my last month on earth, I pray my giving still counts as faith. I don't want God to think I doubted him." A woman in the 3rd row gasped loudly, her hand flying to her chest. A man in the back row covered his mouth as tears welled. Even one of the security guards lowered his eyes, unable to watch. But Jasmine wasn't finished. She read the next line slowly, letting each word sink beneath the skin of every listener. "I've given every week, Lord. I know my miracle is coming. I know Pastor said you reward trust. Please don't forget me." Silence swallowed the room. Not peaceful silence, the kind that crushes, the kind that reveals. Jasmine folded the note carefully and turned toward Joel. "Pastor Joel," she said. What miracle was she waiting for? Joel's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally muttered, This isn't the right context." Jasmine took one step closer, fixing her gaze on him with calm fire. "Then tell us," she said. "What context would make this acceptable?" The sanctuary erupted in murmurs. People leaned forward. Others stood. Some looked directly at Joel, waiting for an answer he couldn't give. Joel raised his hand sharply, signaling security. "Remove her," he hissed. 2 guards approached instantly. One reached for Jasmine's elbow. She pulled her arm away, not violently, but with undeniable authority. "You can remove me," she said, her voice rising enough for the entire arena to hear. "But before you do, tell them why a woman who trusted your teachings died believing her struggles meant she failed God." Joel's smile fell apart completely. Something broke in the atmosphere. Jasmine lifted the note high above her head so the cameras could zoom in. Her voice thundered. She wasn't weak. She wasn't faithless. She wasn't spiritually broken. She was misled by promises that never matched her reality. The congregation exploded. "Let her speak. Answer her. Is this true? What about Deborah? Explain this." Joel raised both hands, shaking them desperately. "Everyone, please. This is misinformation." "Then correct it," Jasmine said softly, but her words sliced through the air. Joel tried. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His voice cracked, stumbled, collapsed. He had no answer. And Lakewood Church knew it. Jasmine lowered the note, but the moment held firm, sharp, suspended, unforgettable. But before Joel could speak again, someone unexpected stood up from the far left aisle. Someone whose connection to Deborah Hayes would change everything. From the far left side of the sanctuary, a woman suddenly rose to her feet, trembling so hard she had to grip her purse with both hands, as if the truth inside her was trying to break free. "I knew Deborah," she shouted, her voice cracking. The entire sanctuary turned toward her. Her knees wobbled as she stepped into the aisle, tears streaking down her cheeks faster than she could wipe them away. "She sat next to me every Sunday," she said. "She told me she gave even when she couldn't afford food, because she believed giving more would bring the breakthrough she prayed for." Joel's face drained of all color. His shoulders sagged. His hand, still hovering near the microphone, began to tremble. Before he could speak, another voice rose from the opposite side of the room. A middle-aged man stepped forward, clutching his baseball cap in both hands. "I drove her home once," he said, eyes filled with pain. "She said she was investing in her future blessing. Said pastor taught that God returns whatever you give with increase." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People started murmuring, pointing, whispering. Phones lifted everywhere, recording the moment from every angle. Live stream comments exploded in real time. A waterfall of disbelief, heartbreak, and anger. This wasn't a single testimony anymore. It wasn't an isolated story. It was becoming a wave too big to silence. And then the moment took a turn no one expected. The worship singer, the same one who had performed joyfully just minutes earlier, walked slowly toward the front of the stage. Her hands shook as she set her microphone gently on the floor. "I can't sing about blessings," she said, voice breaking, "while people like Deborah suffer right in front of us." The room erupted again. Another musician stepped down, placing his guitar on its stand. Then another. Then a drummer. Then 2 backup vocalists. Joel turned in every direction, panic consuming his face as his worship team walked away one by one, leaving their positions empty. "Everyone, please," he pleaded, raising his hands helplessly. "This is not how our ministry operates." But his voice barely rose above the noise, because the congregation wasn't listening anymore. The truth had become louder than the microphone, louder than the stage lights, louder than the polished sermons of the past. Dozens of people stood. Some cried openly. Some clasped hands and prayed. Some demanded answers. Some shouted, "Why didn't we know?" Others simply shook their heads as if realizing something they wished wasn't true. Jasmine remained still near the edge of the stage, watching the moment unfold without adding a single word. She didn't need to. The truth had already started an avalanche. Joel attempted one last time. "Please, everyone, we can talk about this calmly." But the sanctuary felt alive, awakened, electrified with something real, raw human truth. And once truth rises, it does not sit back down. Just when the noise reached its peak, a figure began walking toward Jasmine. Slow, steady, deliberate. The crowd parted for them instinctively. No one knew who they were yet. But their expression, their posture, it was clear. They held the final piece of the Deborah Hayes mystery. If you're still here, hit the like button and comment "Truth Matters." This is where everything finally comes together. From the far back of the sanctuary, an elderly man in a gray suit began walking slowly toward the stage. His steps were unsteady, almost fragile, but there was something unbreakable in his expression, a determination that came from grief, love, and truth finally demanding to be spoken. When he reached Jasmine, he paused, breathing deeply as thousands of silent eyes watched him. His hands trembled as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small blue notebook, the edges worn, the cover faded from years of handling. "This," he whispered, voice cracking, "belonged to my sister." He looked up, tears gathering. My sister was Deborah Hayes. A collective gasp rippled through the sanctuary. Even those who had been shouting minutes earlier fell into stunned silence. He opened the notebook to a page marked with a ribbon so frayed it was clear it had been touched many times. "She wrote this the week before she passed," he said, barely holding himself together. He handed the notebook to Jasmine. She opened it gently, as if holding something sacred. She read silently for a long moment. Then she slowly lifted her eyes, burning with emotion. "She wrote," Jasmine said, her voice steady but heavy, "If I ever get the chance to speak to Pastor Joel, I want to tell him I forgave him long ago. I just wish he had told me that God loves me even if I have nothing to give." The sanctuary did not erupt this time. It collapsed into stillness. Not anger. Not shouting. Not accusations. Just truth. Pure, undeniable truth. Joel lowered his head. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He simply stood there, silent, small, and deeply human. The elderly man continued, voice trembling. "My sister didn't blame this church. She blamed herself. That's the tragedy. She thought poverty made her unworthy, when all she ever wanted was to feel loved by God." Jasmine placed a hand gently over the notebook, as if shielding Deborah's final words. "That ends today," she said quietly. She turned toward the congregation, her voice rising with compassion, not anger. "Your value is not measured by what you give. Your faith is not weak because you struggle. Your life is not defined by how much you earn. And God's love," she paused, letting the silence settle, "God's love doesn't need proof." Tears streamed across faces all around the room, young, old, wealthy, poor. The truth had reached everyone equally. Jasmine stepped down from the stage. She handed the blue notebook back to Deborah's brother, placing both hands over his as if passing back something sacred. As she reached the exit, she turned one last time. Her voice carried across the entire sanctuary. "Truth doesn't destroy faith. It protects it." The live stream ended, but the conversation had only begun. Deborah Hayes' story spread far beyond Lakewood, across social media, communities, churches, and living rooms everywhere. It ignited one of the largest discussions on compassion, responsibility, and the true meaning of faith the ministry world had seen in years. And Jasmine? She didn't celebrate. She didn't condemn. She simply reminded people of a truth too easily forgotten. Faith is not a transaction. It is a relationship, and love never charges admission. If this story moved you, like the video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more truth-based storytelling that respects every belief and every person.